Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes?
Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors. I know many of her donors. I absolutely used it. And so did Warren Buffett. And so did George Soros. And so did many of the other people that Hillary is getting money from. She complains that Donald Trump took advantage of the tax code. Why didn't she change it? Why didn't you change it when you were a senator? The reason you didn't is that all your friends take the same advantage that I do. And I do. You have provisions in the tax code that frankly we could change. But you wouldn't change it because all of these people give you the money so you can take negative ads on Donald Trump.
If you don't like the changes that we've made, the door is open and you can leave.
So this video is 8 reasons why you need an offshore company ever more now than ever. And we're going to go over why, but also how, step by step. And, other jurisdictions we're offering as well. But this one is primarily focused on non-US citizens. So yeah, Craig, why should we get an offshore LLC, trust, or bank account now?
The main reason is to protect your assets. In this day and age, if you've got all your money sitting in a bank account in your home country, you mentioned it's not for Americans, but this is for everybody.
Yeah.
You don't want to have all your assets, all your money sitting in your home country. It's just crazy in this day and age. We've seen how the governments can step in. They can freeze your bank account in an instant. And when they do that, if you get no offshore accounts, offshore company assets in other countries, you're completely stuffed. You don't even have money to pay a lawyer to get your funds released. So it's absolutely essential. Anyone that's even got a small amount of assets, even if you've got less than 100,000, you should still have an offshore account somewhere with at least some money in it. Do not leave yourself vulnerable. Yeah. So that the main reason is for asset protection, to protect you against your bank accounts being frozen so that you can still operate, you can still continue to live in case something like that happens. And of course, everyone thinks it will never happen to them, but believe me, this can happen to anybody for almost any arbitrary reason. You can even get pulled into things that have got nothing to do with you that you don't expect to happen. I think it's essential that people, one, they have offshore companies with offshore accounts. And of course, the next advantage of an offshore company is it's a separate legal entity. So if somebody, for example, is suing you, Hector, they're not suing your company. Your company is a different legal entity. So if for example, somebody starts suing you, they freeze your account, it doesn't mean that your company's account is frozen, particularly if it's offshore. And for those of us who've experienced government attacks in their home country, where they can just look at your bank account and they can get your information without even a court order. Nowadays, and people don't realize that can happen. They can just, if you're on the radar of one of the hundreds of arbitrary government busybody agencies, they can just key into your bank account, they can get into your PayPal account, they can get into your credit card accounts, they can get all your information. I mean, you should not be living, particularly in a country that's becoming increasingly like a police state like the UK. It's like, I heard someone saying recently, it's like North Korea in the North Sea. You must have a backup plan. So you must have, to me, it's a non-negotiable. You need to have your assets, at least some of your assets, offshore, and that means an offshore company for added privacy, for asset protection, and of course we can get into the tax benefits and so on. Well, but that is, the tax benefits are further down the list. The main reason is to have that backup plan and protect yourself.
I totally agree. I mean, if just touching on the UK, in terms of free speech, just shows you a bit about what the government, bothering people for. I think 12,000 people in the last year were arrested for comments. So, and then those people are probably getting looked into with their accounts just because of what things that they say. To set it up offshore, it's roughly the cost of, it depends on where, but it's roughly the cost of an iPhone. And you're potentially saving hundreds or millions in asset protection that now the government can't seize. So it seems like a no-brainer.
You've got to almost think of it like an insurance policy. If you're paying what you say, as you say, you rightly say, it's a small amount. And you've got to think of that, it's insurance against a worst case scenario where some arbitrary agency comes along and freezes your accounts. It may not be a government agency, it could be a private lawsuit as well. That can also cause your accounts. So there are so many reasons why you need this, but we're talking a small amount of money for this peace of mind, and it's something that I don't think anyone, I say, even with a relatively small asset base, should be without.
Yeah, and actually, not many people are offering, power of attorney products like we are to to set up offshore. And if they are, they're charging silly money, like, you know, they're saying, oh, Dubai, you know, 15K, which is just laughable. Whereas this is, yeah, it's much more affordable than people imagine.
You can spend you can spend the fortune for specific use cases. I've seen people set up, and I've done it myself. You set up a company in somewhere like Monaco,
Mm,
and you're not going to get much change out of like 25,000 euros in
mm,
setting up a company there. But that's a very specific use case scenario, which most people don't need.
yeah,
For most people, they want the privacy, asset protection, some tax benefits, and so on,
yeah,
and they can make do with more run of the mill jurisdiction. If we want to actually talk about jurisdictions, most people, particularly in the English speaking world, they go for BVI companies or Channel Islands companies and so on. Channel Island companies can be pretty good for Americans, for
US,
example.
yeah.
But if you're British, you don't want to be dealing with a British Crown territory. Why would you take your money out of a
Mm,
police state jurisdiction like the UK and
yeah.
put it in BVI, where the UK basically controls that jurisdiction?
Hmm.
It's just insane.
Yeah.
So you want to be thinking a bit more outside the box in terms of jurisdictions.
Tell us about, and that's a very good point. I was even going to maybe open the video with that. I mean, as a US citizen, you know, the Channel Islands, although they're in, you know, very close to UK soil, are great because of for US people, but not for UK people because of the reporting standards. So tell us about the common reporting standard and that side of things.
Well, the common reporting standard is something that surprisingly not more people should be aware of the common reporting standard. The common reporting standard is something that was set up by the OECD,
Mm,
the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and it basically abolished banking privacy under the radar with nobody noticing. So if you set up an account in there's over 100 countries that are members of the common reporting standard, and if you set up a company in the BVI, the Cayman Islands, any of the standard offshore jurisdictions, your bank account, even if it's a company account
mhm,
or a personal account, your bank account information is sent to your home government once a year
mm.
with your balances and interest. So it's
As
cancelled.
a UK citizen though, so yeah, tell us the difference
As a
between
citizen of
yeah.
any country apart from the US, the one gap which I was coming to was the surprisingly one country that's not a member of the Common Reporting Standards is the United States.
Wow.
But they have another standard which is similar,
Mhm.
but the loophole for non-Americans is they can set up an American company, open an American bank account, get an American tax number, and they're not subject to the common reporting standard. The US banks will not send your information back to the UK government or the French government or anywhere else.
Yeah.
The UK have the US have their own system called FATCA, which obliges most banks in foreign countries to report back to the US government, but the US government does not report back on foreign citizens that open bank accounts in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, the US company and US bank accounts actually, and to most people very surprisingly, are better for privacy
Mm.
and for asset protection than a standard offshore jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So you're actually much better. And there's a few things that you have to do this properly, which is why we're offering this service to set up US companies and the US bank account and the tax number that you need to do it properly. And obviously having the appropriate US address and so on. So you can avoid the common reporting standard, having your information reported back to your home government. If you're not American, you can set up one of these accounts, and it's a big step forward.
Yeah.
It gives you more privacy, more asset protection, and it gives you that fund,
Yeah.
your plan B, outside a country like the UK.
Yeah. Yeah. We're kind of two, you know, some would say random guys. I wouldn't like to say so, but we're just two random guys. And in our experience, we've been affected. Our family members have been affected. In my family as well. I mean, just touching on my experience, my father was, you know, being investigated for something he didn't do, and he, you know, had all these had a few charges thrown against him, and effectively the government went after him for, you know, 10 years. And obviously if someone's innocent, you know, it's just going to keep going further and further down the line because they can't find anything to incriminate you. And in that process, you know, your assets are frozen. This is worse than the sort of Russian oligarchs, you know, free for assets frozen for maybe a year or two, which I think is as far as anything should be frozen. But then you've got third party affected people who weren't even, you know, related to anything he was doing, like myself, my 90-year-old grandmother, my mum, People like that, all their bank accounts just closed. And we don't need to go into the detail because what we need to show here is just how corrupt and how tyrannical governments are. And that is really what we're saying is why we want to help. And this is why we want to
yes,
help other people. We don't want them to go, we want them to learn from our mistakes. And I'm sure you can share
the,
some.
the, the, the point the point is that it can happen to anyone. Look at the example that you've just given there, like your 90-year-old grandmother having her bank account frozen because of something that your dad didn't actually do, just because he was under investigation.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, and so anyone can find themselves in the middle of one of these situations, even if they've lived the quietest life possible,
Yeah.
and even if they haven't been in business in any shape or form. But anyone in business in particular, there's always the risk of some investigation. And as you rightly point out, an investigation doesn't mean you're guilty. But
Mm.
even just at the start of an investigation, the first thing that these agencies try to do is to freeze your bank accounts
Yeah.
because they know that that puts you at a huge disadvantage, and you get no way to defend yourself because the first thing that happens when you call a lawyer and your bank account's been frozen, they want money from somewhere. They
Exactly.
don't
Yeah.
they, they don't
Totally
work for
true.
free.
He couldn't. Yeah. My dad. I think in your circumstance you might share. You were perhaps set up better than my father, whereas he wasn't able to fund his own case. And as you're saying there, it's like guilty until proven innocent, whereas everyone knows the saying innocent until proven guilty. But this way, how the UK now operates is definitely a guilty until proven innocent policy, and it's absolutely catastrophic on everything. And what this does having these offshore entities is it just kind of it makes you slightly untouchable, but it also brings the ball back into the innocent until proven guilty court. Like if you're actually guilty, you're guilty, and eventually it'll come around to get you. But this stuff just means the initial tyrannical government bots and people who've never had a job in their life sort of coming and just bothering innocent people, hardworking people. That just doesn't happen, and I think that's a
Keep
very
in
good
mind
thing to do.
the people that are the best targets are not the people with nothing, and they're
Mm.
also not the super rich. The people that are the best targets for these government bureaucrats that go after him is the
The middle
middle.
class, yeah.
The people that have got some assets, they might have a house, they might have a business, they might have, from a few hundred thousand to a few million.
Mm.
Those are the targets that are easy to go after because the super rich will have
Probably already set
lawyers,
up, yeah.
they'll be well connected, they'll have offshore trusts and so
Yeah,
on. They're difficult to go after.
yeah.
And the people at the bottom, there's no point in going after them because they have nothing. But the people in the
Yeah,
middle, which is most people, that's
which is
that's
which
the
is
target. That's who they'll go
mm,
after, and they do that purposely because it's easier. Because these
yeah.
people are not set up, they've got all the money in the local bank, local bank account. They've got a house in the
Mm,
local community. They've got a business. All
yeah.
their assets are in their
Broad
country,
daylight, they're not trying to
and
hide anything. I
and
mean, we're not going to turn away any super rich who haven't, for whatever reason, still set up their offshore or trusts or bank accounts. So
I mean,
still contact
there
us,
are there
but
are a few. I mean, I talk to people fairly regularly that the particularly when they've had the big inheritance. I was talking to one guy the other day who's inherited 30 million, and he had nothing set up, and these people exist, particularly when you've got people coming into money unexpectedly.
mm,
And I would urge anyone like that to get themselves sorted as quickly as possible because you,
yeah.
you don't want to be in that vulnerable position where someone can come along and
Even if you're looking at stuff, if we start doing a slightly more complex US video for US citizens, I mean, obviously, Trump's a bit better than the next person who comes in, but I think people have also got to learn that, no matter who's in, who's your president, who's your politician, almost nothing changes. And you make the point every single video. I mean, you've only got to look at, obviously, we don't mind Trump, and Elon Musk was actually probably better in terms of trying to cut government spending, which is the cause of all of this, really, when they then start hashing around and trying to steal from innocent civilians. But I mean, he increased the spending to, was it 3 trillion or something, which is just
yeah. I mean, I think the point is you can't vote yourself out of a tourney. We're
yeah,
in a tourney, whether you're in the US or the UK or the EU. We're in a tourney. We're controlled by these
yeah,
bureaucrats, and no matter who you vote for, the government
mm,
still exists. They're still going to want the tax money. It doesn't matter.
yeah,
People thought they were voting for freedom, voting for Trump, and
mm,
they made a mistake with that quite
yeah,
clearly because they've got higher taxes than ever. The government is still there. They're still collecting your taxes. All
mm,
all the nonsense that he spoke before the election has proved to be just that.
yeah,
And although it may be better than someone like Keir Starmer in the UK, I would argue that politics doesn't matter with the things that we're talking about at
Exactly.
all. You have to protect yourself. The government is your enemy. It will
Mm.
always be your enemy, no matter who
Yeah.
is the prime minister or the president. The government is always going to be your enemy, and you need to protect yourself from
Yeah.
your home country's government. That is
Yeah.
absolutely essential. Your country's government is your biggest enemy.
And
That, that,
and also
that, that that's the government that
ignoring.
can do you harm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And ignoring, individual stories like I've shared, uh, and it's funny, there's only two of us on the call and we both had extreme circumstances for ourselves, but also family members. But also, you see how governments operate with sort of cover-ups, and they're not, they don't disclose, they're very late to disclose information. Like if they on the news, they were just truthful and honestly told everything, people wouldn't have all these conspiracy theories. And some of these conspiracy theories are pretty interesting and pretty damning. I mean, someone who advocated for literally zero state or as close to little government as possible was Charlie Kirk, and he got shot. But the reason I mentioned that is because how they dealt with releasing the information. Like they didn't release the full transcript from the killer, and they kind of just said, "Yeah, this is the guy. We've got him. Nothing more to look at here." Whereas there should still be a massive, deep investigation into that, especially the roommate and things like that. And we're going slightly off topic, but it was something that I was watching last night, and I think
Well, I think you can go lots of rabbit holes with that one, particularly even if you look back to the Manson case back in the 60s, how this Manson group killed all these people back in the 60s. It was discovered later that they're all actually somehow mind controlled by the CIA, and it does make you think
yeah,
about what's going on. But that's maybe a bit off topic from
it
what
is a
we're
bit off
talking
topic,
about.
but
But the point is, never trust the state
exactly, yeah, yeah.
and never keep all your assets.
Yes, we've talked about some pretty good reasons why this is urgent and, should do this now. It doesn't matter who's your government, politician, leader, the asset protection side of things, getting to pay zero tax, just escaping your government in general, and then other jurisdictions and, trusts and that extra layer that offers. But, how for a non-US citizen do we go about it? I mean, our website explains it quite well here. Something information we'll need, but perhaps touch on some of these points as we go
Well,
through.
I think just to keep it very simple, we've set up a business called LLCvault.com, which aims to make it easy to get started in this process of setting up an overseas entity, again for non-US residents. So basically, you can go into LLCvault.com. You can literally, all you got to do is put in your name, your choice of LLC name, make the payment, and you've got an LLC. You've got a US LLC. The bank account will be set up. The tax number will be set up. The whole process, the company set up almost immediately. The bank account, obviously, we guide you through the process step by step to get the bank account set up in the US, getting your tax number, which is required for that, and within 4 to 6 weeks, you have your US entity, your US bank account, debit card, and your tax number,
Yeah.
and that's the main point. I mean, there are, you can have a look at the site. There are many, there are various points to go through, which hopefully answers any questions that anyone has on this. But the whole idea was to make it as simple as possible to set up
Yeah.
a US company as a foreigner. And in my mind, a US company, a US LLC, can do the same job that a BVI company
Yeah.
or any other normal offshore entity can do
Yeah.
without being part of the common reporting standard and having your bank accounts reported back to your home government. That is the main advantage of using a US
Yeah.
LLC. There's much more confidentiality. One good thing that Trump
That's what I was
did
about
do
to say.
is
Privacy. Yeah.
is that there's no government ownership registry of these companies either in the US, which does exist in jurisdictions like the BVI and the Cayman Islands and so on. In the US, one of the things that Trump did when he came in was he abolished the need to have a government registry of owners of LLCs. So that's another major
Yeah.
advantage of using the US as jurisdiction compared to other
Yeah.
offshore jurisdictions. So it's surprising to any Americans listening to this. It would probably be surprising to talk of the US as an offshore jurisdiction, but for anyone who's not
Yeah.
US resident or citizen, it most definitely is.
This can be one of maybe two or three layers with other offshore entities that someone has as well, just to get
Yes,
utterly out of the system.
I think we'll make future videos about other offshore strategies and cover what Americans can do as well to protect themselves. But it's a complex area, and you can get into complex strategies like trusts and you have a multi-jurisdiction structure with different companies and so on. And some people will have complicated lives that need these kind of things, which we're happy to help them out with. But for now, let's just focus on the basic US LLC and how they can get that set up basically in less than 10 minutes.
You know, why the US? Well, banking is the best in the world. It's 100% the best in the world. And, you know, you got the highest reward credit cards, Chase Sapphire Reserve and the Amex Gold. These are cards that basically are sought after and quite easy to get. And if you can get those sort of cards as well, there's just added benefits there, and you know, a great financial system, good laws.
I can keep on. It's not just bank accounts; it's also brokerage accounts as well that you can open with the LLC. Which again, it's not necessarily included in what we're offering here, but we can certainly help with that if necessary.
Also, nominee directors and nominee shareholders is probably for someone who's quite well established already, quite a big business.
Well, for someone that doesn't want the name to appear anywhere, that's something that we can help with. Most people will not need that level of secrecy, but if they do, we can. You know, some people don't like to have their name appear on any paperwork anywhere, and that's something that we can help with if need be.
Lovely.
I think that's all for now. I think if anyone's got any particular questions, just ask away in the comments.
Please don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and join our Discord chat room linked in the description so you can see these plays and get in these opportunities when we do.
In the modern world, great leaders resolve their conflicts with words.